Growing up as a little girl, my mom always taught me that if you come across someone who is in need, you have a responsibility. It is your obligation to help them if you can, and that they crossed your path for that reason, and that you don't have the authority to decide whether they deserve your help or not. That is the God in you. And I'm so glad that I was raised that way, because a few weeks ago we talked about the lesson that said that they're going to know that we're Christians by our love. And if we love God, we're going to love God's people. And that's an area where I'd love to see us all really walk in the love of God, being responsive to the needs of our brothers and our sisters. Welcome back to the Sanctuary Sunday School. And if this is your first time, welcome. I'm so glad to have you here. Everybody, I need you to subscribe, tap the bell, and share. I am determined to reach our 2020 goals. And again, I appreciate you so much for sticking with the Sanctuary Sunday School through everything that we have gone through this year. We are still here, and I am yet thanking God for it. This week's subject is responsive love. And we're looking at the church here. And I love looking at this church because it kind of reminds me of how my church started. You know, you could bring your kids to church. It didn't matter who had money, who didn't have money. Everybody was going to eat. You know, we made sure all of the kids had whatever they needed for school or whatever. I can remember seeing my mom. She would literally pay for kids' back to school clothes. She would buy everything on kids' Christmas lists. And it was just one body, and everybody was treated like family. And it's just such a beautiful memory that I have. And when I was reading this passage, it reminded me of that. And we see this is actually kind of the first Christian church. And we see that Peter had preached, and they had added 5,000 souls to the church, and the Sadducees were looking like, what are they doing? What are they preaching? By what authority are they doing all of this? Because they were witnessing this exponential growth of the church through the power of the gospel of Jesus. And that's what they told them. We are by the authority and the power of God through his son, Jesus Christ. And those believers, they were so engaged in that church, and they understood that in order for them to build out that church, they needed to love each other. And the word talks about how, I love this, there was none lacking. That is such an example for us as the Christian church of today, because sometimes it's easy, to think I did my thing, I'm all that, and I'm this and you're not. And sometimes you see, as my dad would say, the big eyes and the little you in church. But that's not the example that we see here in this lesson. It said none were lacking, and that they just brought their things to the apostle and they pulled it all together, and the apostle distributed it to make sure that everybody had what they need. That is a responsive love, where the church was able to meet the needs of the people because of this love that they had for the brethren. And that was going on. And it says here we have a man named by the name of Joseph, whose surname was Barnabas, and he was there. And it says that he sold his land and he gave the proceeds to the church, again, so that everybody would have what they need. And I love this so much. I'm going to reiterate this because now we're living in a day where it's me, myself, and I got to get this for me and mine's. I'm going to take care of me and mine. And it's not so much the willingness to share, to make sure that everybody has. So we see this example, and this is what was going on in the church. And as fate would have it, or as the world is, when something is going good, there always has to be someone who comes along and messes it up. All right. And so we have this couple here, Ananias and his wife Sapphire, and they went out and they sold the land, and they put a plot together where they would only give part of the money to the church. And every time I study this lesson, it's heartbreaking, because what they did was not even necessary. It wasn't even necessary for them to do this. They just did it. And so went out, sold the land, said that they were giving it all to the church, but they kept part of the money back. Ananias came in and told the preacher told Peter that first. and he immediately fell dead. And the men came and they took him out of the church. A little while later, his wife came in, told the same story. She fell dead and they took her out and they buried her as well. And Peter told them, he said, you did not lie to flesh and blood. You lied to the Holy Ghost, and it was the power of God. And we read these stories and how powerful that was. And I think I shared last week, about how afraid I'm literally physically afraid to go into the house of God and play around or lie or do something, because I believe these scriptures. I believe that this couple really fell dead. And I'm not trying to get in that kind of trouble with God for defiling his people or the man of God. And sometimes we don't have adequate respect for the man of God, or sometimes people do things in church for the wrong reasons, to get attention or to get a position. But what you do for the Lord should be done out of love. And as much as he loves us so much that he gave his only begotten son, what we do, what we render should always be done in love. That should be our only motive. When we step outside of a motive of love, when motives turn personal, when they turn selfish, that's when they become sinful, and they also become dangerous, as we see in this lesson of Ananias and Sapphire. We want to have a responsive love where we see a need and we meet the need out of love. In your giving, in your tithing, in your offering, in your benevolence that you show toward each other, it all needs to be done in love. I know now on social media it's extremely popular to videotape yourself giving. I'm not going to knock that. That's something I absolutely cannot do. I was trained that when you give somebody something, you don't even mention it. Nobody's going to know what you're doing. And because when you show that level of love, when you respond to the need, and I'm just going to throw this in there for my own personal testimony, and I teach this all the time about giving and responding in love. You reap what you sow. That's what the word tells us. And sometimes people look for reciprocity, right, rather than reaping. And I'm going to explain this really quickly. See, reciprocity is I give you $5, you give me five back. That ain't no blessing. But see, when you have a seed, you plant a seed in the ground, right? You don't go and dig that seed up and get your seed back. You let the seed stay there and it grows into a plant or a tree or whatever it is. And so when you respond in love and when you meet the needs of people, then God meets your need. For example, and I'm going to tell this real quickly, and I know I'm telling a lot, but it's relevant. And there's a lot, I have a lot of brothers and sisters that I teach in Sunday school. They're doing a fabulous job. But for me, my thing is applying these lessons to your everyday life. I remember one time I was having a financial difficulty and I was working downtown and I did not have enough money to get to work for the rest of the week. This is real life. I did not have enough money to get back and forth to work for the rest of the week. But I drove to choir rehearsal. I was a choir director at the time. And one of my choir members came to me and she says, Val, I don't have enough money to get home from rehearsal on the bus. Okay. So I already don't have enough money for the rest of the week. This was Wednesday night. And I gave her what I had so that she could get home, because I'm like, well, she can't get home. It's night. So I'll try to figure something out in order to get to work. I didn't worry about it. I gave her that little money. This was only like maybe $2, $3, but I just didn't have it. And she didn't have it. So gave her that money. And then I went home. So the next day, I had enough money to get to work and get back that day. That was Thursday, but I did not have enough money to get to work and get back on Friday. So I get up, I go to work Thursday. I don't really know what I'm going to do Friday, but I wasn't worried about it. So I got on my train. And as I was putting my money into the little receptacle thing, a lady stopped me. She goes, hey, wait, don't pay yet. And I go, why? She said, because I have a 10-day pass and I still have 5 days left. So you just take this pass because I bought a monthly pass. So these are going to go to waste. And I go, well, how much do you need for it? And she said, no, I already spent the money. You don't have to give me anything. Just take it. Okay. So now I had enough money to go to work, go to McDonald's to get me a burger, and I had money for the rest of the week. That's a very, very small thing. But I will never, ever forget that in my life, because God turned that thing around for me in 24 hours. where I was able to have everything that I need. And that's because we want to always show love. The reason why I'm sharing that is because sometimes we're so scared about what I need and what I want, and we lose sight of the fact that God is taking care of us. And again, like I said up in the beginning about my mom, if you're in a position to help somebody, help them. You can't go wrong by having a responsive love and meeting the needs of people. Because look, your need might be $5, and I give you that $5. My need might be healing from a chronic disease. And so I meet your need, God meets my need, and that's how it works. So we want to have that responsive love. And I know my teaching is not traditional, but I'm going to tell you this thing. I live it, and it's down in my soul, and everything that I say is real. And I kind of took this lesson in a different direction because maybe somebody wanted to hear that, because people are struggling, man. This pandemic, we're moving toward more closures. People are fearful. But now is the time for us this lesson is super timely, because now is the time to have a responsive love. Reach out. And I've been saying this almost every week. Reach out, find people, find a way to help somebody. You cannot go wrong, because just as sure as you respond to your brother and sister in love, God is always going to replenish, provide, and take care of you.